This video is on indicators of chemical reactions. So there are two different types of changes that we can have in the chemistry lab. We can have a physical change, where the appearance of a substance changes, but chemically the substance is the same. Some examples of this would be phase changes, so melting or freezing, and the other ones. A change in size, shape, mixing multiple things together but being able to separate them apart, and dissolving. Dissolving is a physical change because the appearance changes, so it seems to disappear, but I can always heat and evaporate off the water, and then crystals would form, and then I'd be able to get my substance back. A chemical change, here atoms that make up everything, which is matter, rearrange to form a new substance with new properties. This usually happens in a chemical reaction. There are 5 indicators that tell us that this change has happened. Again, these happen in chemical reactions. The first one is a change in temperature, a change in color. It can produce an odor. They can form a precipitate, and a precipitate just means a solid formed from a liquid or aqueous solution. Aqueous means dissolved in water. Or they can form bubbles, which we would notice in our solution, and this would tell us that we're forming a gas. One thing to note is that in a change in color, this would not be something that's red plus something blue turning purple. That's just colors acting that way. This is not an indicator of a chemical reaction. A chemical reaction and change in color would be something clear being mixed with something else that's clear and colorless. And that those two things together would make something that's yellow. Okay, and you'll see that in the lab later next week or this week. So what does happen in a chemical reaction that causes these 5 indicators to occur? When a chemical reaction, the atoms and molecules that interact with each other, these are called your reactants. We also make a product, so the atoms and molecules that are produced by the reaction are called products. Only the atoms present in the reactants can end up in the products. No new atoms can be created, and no atoms can be destroyed. Reactants contact each other, bonds between atoms and the reactants are broken, and atoms rearrange to form new bonds to make the products. So in a chemical reaction, we have many different parts. We'll notice that we'll have some compound, 1 or 2 compounds. To add them together, we have a plus sign. And then we have our products over here. We could have 1 or 2 compounds here. In between, we have this arrow, and this arrow is our yield sign. This means that something makes something else. Like before, I said the atoms and molecules produced by the reactants are called the products, and the atoms and molecules that interact with each other are the reactants. So here we have molecules because we have multiple atoms put together, and that interact with each other are called the reactants. So these on the left-hand side of my arrow are my reactants. They're on the left of arrow. The atoms and molecules produced by the reaction are called products. So this is my arrow. Things that are made here are my products. And then these are my molecules. If we look at our molecules, we have big letters here. These are my elements. And as a whole, this thing all together, this is a molecule or compound. My little numbers here are subscripts. That tells me how many atoms. I have these big numbers in front. These are coefficients. And that tells me how many molecules. And then we have these letters in parentheses. These tell us our states of matter. Here on my S, this stands for solid. My AQ is aqueous, which we already said above means dissolved in water. G is for gas. And L, this is a lowercase cursive L. L stands for liquid.